Hi, I'm Dan. I'm making a third-person shooter, and this is Devlog 1, prototyping and base mechanics. In the prototyping stage, I wanted to firstly find something that had quote-unquote purpose. Sure, making an arena shooter is viable, but I was looking for something more. I've always wanted to make a platformer shooter, so that's where I started. I set up the game character, adding a few features like wall jumping, the ability to grab onto ledges, and a basic shooting mechanic. And despite being fun even without any major features, I decided against it due to a lack of ideas surrounding the art style and story. Having my first Steam game fall completely flat on its face, I took a step back to see exactly why, and the answer is simple, I think. It had no bigger reason for existing. I asked myself, would you play this? And the quick answer is no. You ran around shooting shapes, got a score, and that was the majority of it. It felt empty and lacked a sense of why. I believe a game doesn't necessarily need unique features beyond anyone's imagination. It just needs drive. An easily explainable answer to why am I doing this? Then, after watching a video of someone playing Ratchet & Clank, I started messing around with the idea of a third-person shooter. I wanted the same movement abilities as the first prototype, but with added freedom in level design, and so on. This time, instead of rushing into character design, I started with just a placeholder character. Top priority was to make sure everything felt responsive and fluent. Regarding combat, I set this up so that the left and right click would operate their respective weapons. Right click shoots the right gun, and left click shoots the left gun. The idea behind this was to add the ability to combine different weapon types, like maybe a rocket launcher in the one hand and an SMG in the other. I steered away from this in the end, which we will see in a little bit. Aiming was the biggest obstacle, getting the projectiles to actually go where you aim, regardless of if it's close or far. You can see by the two red arrows at the end of the guns how the spawn rotation changes to make sure that you're always aiming to the center of the screen. Ledge grabbing was at least a quick setup, as I had just copied the code from the side-scroller project, and because it uses line tracing, it works both in 2D and 3D space. Wall jumping was super janky. I tried setting it up so that if you didn't hold down a direction, the character would ignore the wall and just do a regular double jump. You can see by the center arrow how the line trace changes direction as I hold down movement in the air. The issue was, I didn't get solid results every time. And on top of that, the camera movement would periodically freak out when doing wall jumps. I added a quick bullet time feature, and it fit in surprisingly well with the rest of the mechanics. The overall feel of everything was sufficient, and I moved on to the designing process. My first thought was to just use the same character as the side-scroller, but it lacked a sense of connection. There was nothing really spectacular about it. Also, I had problems with the character's rig. There was sizing issues which I couldn't figure out, and in the end I figured the model can maybe be used as an enemy of some sort. So I decided to start from scratch. I wanted to make a sci-fi character that felt real and believable. So I got rid of the helmet idea, threw in some canvas shoes, in the hopes of making a character that the player can build a relationship with throughout the game. And after texturing the character, I was happy with it and started on the actual project. I switched movement to a more generic third-person shooter, with free running and then ADS, or an aiming state. A lot of the animations still need plenty of tweaking, and some will even be replaced at a later stage. There is currently 3 weapons in the game, to serve as placeholders or reference for adding more weapons later on. We have our pistol, a rifle, and then a melee weapon, which is a sword. I wanted to make the sword iconic to the character, kind of like Gordon Freeman and his crowbar. Getting the aiming to feel right took quite a lot of time, as I had problems with getting the character to actually aim at the reticle. But I finally figured it out, and she now aims correctly. You can see as I move from wall to wall how the gun changes direction. The camera is no longer taken control of by wall jumping, and it made the whole mechanic feel a little more fluent and gave better results in the end. Ledge grabbing worked as it should, and I added a climbing animation for a more realistic effect. Bullet time is still here, though again I'm not sure on how that would be implemented into actual gameplay. but we'll figure that out as we go along. The next stage would be to figure out the storyline, which would also determine the setting and enemy types. And then we need to look at micro features like upgrades or having different weapon types, special abilities, and so on. But that's pretty much all I have for now, and until next time, goodbye.